Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Of course, back here with Kurt. He's in a fancy office with all the trophies. We're going to be doing an exciting video today and kind of leading it up to another video next week. But today we're going to do a kind of 2020 recap. And then as a teaser next week, we're going to do a 2021 kind of goals, plans, hopes. But first things first, Kurt, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jason. How are you today?
Fantastic. Got a little bit of snow up here, but I know you were rubbing it in. You have a sunny day and you rode your bike to the office today. You had to rub that in, of course, but no,
Yeah, well,
things are
I'm
good.
taking advantage of the lovely weather. You know, if you're going to live in Los Angeles, there's other things that aren't so great. So you might as well take advantage of the weather.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, hey, so let's hop into it. 2020 recap, as a little intro to people. It's been an incredible year for the Q, and it's easy to get caught up on the week to week. Oh, what are the ratings this week? What happened last week? This and that. We wanted to kind of sum up the year. I know a lot of people are just starting to see these videos a couple weeks ago. Even seeing some of the other YouTubers covering. So I wanted to give people an update on what's been accomplished this year. And, it's nice to take a step back and be like, wow, this is what happened. So Kurt, I'll throw it to you. I know you have a few highlights you wanted to go over. You can pick where you want to start, and we'll kind of take it through before COVID to ratings to where we are now, and really just sum up the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, Scott Patterson, our chairman, always likes to start a conversation saying bad news first. 2020 has been a year. COVID has overwhelmed all of us in one way, shape, or form, and it's actually helped some businesses. I think there were pieces of it that helped our business. In hindsight, now didn't see it at the time, but in hindsight, I see that. But look, we started 2020 with a bang. Our influencer marketing business that primarily is based here out of Los Angeles was starting to take off. We had doubled the amount of revenue in Q1 that we had done in calendar 2019. We had a pipeline of over $800,000 of business going into Q2 in February of 2020. Our India business, we had lined up some major over-the-top distribution and some major mobile distribution in addition to our television distribution. So we were cresting at that point 500 million that we reached on the platforms we were on. And we were in the middle of negotiating in February and finalizing with one of the largest ad agencies in the world. I won't mention them, but also in India, our biggest single deal, which was for what's called 1 crore. 1 crore, at that time, it was about 150,000 US dollars. It's now about 140,000 US dollars. But at any rate, that was our first big single order for advertising, which was all based upon the excitement of what was going to happen. And boom, COVID hit. And those two businesses, our influencer marketing business was 95% driven by theatrical motion picture releases. That's what we would be out promoting on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, et cetera. The new movie that was going into theaters that weekend. Well, we all know what happened. Movie theaters shut down in March. And the India side, that's all an advertiser supported business. Well, we were the new brash, guys walking into the room of these agencies and brands and saying, we haven't really shown what we can do yet, but wait till you see what happens for our ratings and blah, 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 blah. Come on board, test us out, et cetera. Well, the advertising business went in the toilet in a huge way, all over the world, not just in India, but everywhere. And the result of those two things was a double whammy. I mean, we went from probably being as optimistic as we had been really in the history of the business in terms of what was happening in both segments of our business in February of 2020 to by April 1, 2020, looking at each other and going, what the hell, man? What just happened? What's going on here? Well, no one could anticipate what the length of COVID was going to be at that time. It's hard to believe right now as we sit here that, we're 8 or 9 months into this thing. And so we, like a lot of people, had to pivot and figure out how we were going to make work what wasn't going to work in the ways that we were thinking of it in February of 2020. And that's really what we focused in on. And one of the things that we could do on the US side, on the influencer side, was find new customers and find people that were outside of the traditional theatrical movie business and drive a new customer base. And we focused our efforts in on that. And it was a little slow. It was hard. We had a tough summer. We weren't getting as many yeses as what we hoped, but ultimately we've turned that business around. And what happened is we now have a wider client base than we've ever had in the history of the company around influencer marketing. And that's as the business is beginning to reform and happen. And eventually theatrical motion pictures will come back. Movie theaters will open again someday. And when that happens, we'll have that in addition to everything else we're doing. On the India side, we were just pounding and pounding and pounding to get new advertisers and brands to step on board and do business with us. Well, that was slow. It was painful. We were freaking out a little bit. But the one thing that we knew that we could focus in on was the content and the product. So we said, you know what, all these shows that we want that we haven't been able to focus in on close, let's focus in and close with these guys, because these content creators and digital stars, they were suffering as well during COVID. So it was sort of like, let's go in and get the people that wouldn't say yes before, close some deals for some of this content, and let's make the product, the channel, and everything around what the QYOU India is, let's make it better and better. And that's what we focused in on. Well, guess what happened? Things started to return a bit around August, September. People were either COVID fatigued or just wanted to move on with life or whatever the reasons may have been. And we started to see our ratings spike in India. And at one point, I think it was now probably 11 or 12 weeks ago, we were at 0.14 on the BARC ratings, the Nielsen rating level of India, 0.14. And then we jumped up the next week to like 0.22, and we were kind of like, okay, great, we doubled. Et cetera, but we were nowhere near. I mean, it was, these things are sort of stages. The first one was to get to 1, now we're on a quest to get to 3, et cetera. Well, in a 10-week period, we went from that 0.14, 0.2 to 2, okay? So you're talking about over 1,000% growth in our ratings in India. Well, what happened? That wasn't because of marketing. We didn't spend any additional money on marketing. We added a little bit of distribution, but it was mainly in the digital and mobile side, not on the TV side where those BARC numbers came from. It happened because we focused on the product and made the channel better and better and got some hit shows onto the platform. And so what happened is that the COVID sort of downturn forced us to redouble our efforts in making sure that the channel was delivering what we had wanted it to. Couldn't really do anything else. So we had to put 100% focus on that. And the results have now been returned in spades through what could only be described as spectacular ratings growth over that period. And so now we've crested and passed, dozens of channels, many of them that are known brand names from companies like Viacom and Disney and Sony and the Times of India Group, et cetera. We've moved past those channels in our ratings. Well, what happened there? That's resulted in us now having advertisers come back and say, whoa, what's going on with you guys? You've got this audience. You've grown from 1 million or 2 million people a week watching your channel to 12 to 14 million people a week watching your channel. What's going on here? So we've gotten attention back on us now from those advertisers. The same big agency that had dumped us in March because of COVID and not wanting to do anything new is back at the table now. We're negotiating with them, and we expect them to be an advertiser on the platform, possibly in this month of December, but certainly in Q1 of 2021. And so the focus of making the channel better and getting better content is going to pay off in what is really the number one priority for the business right now, which is monetization. So 2020, which started out with a lot of high hopes, ended up kind of in this very, very difficult and challenged area, I would say, in the April, really May, June timeframe. It was like nothing was happening and the world was kind of frozen for a while. We really saw the benefits of that start to raise their head again in August, and particularly in September and October. And so, what are the results of that? We're picking up. We'll do the highest amount of revenue we've ever done in India from television advertisement in December. We're projecting a big rise in that next year. We'll talk about that more in terms of our 2021 hopes. But the bottom line is that we've pushed the business to a point where we've really gone, from 2 million to 12 million plus on a weekly basis of television viewership. That's also sparked more attention and more interest from the OTT and mobile distribution partners that we have. And so I could sit here and say I'm more excited about what the potential is now as a result of kind of what happened during the COVID onslaught than I even was back in February of 2020. So it's a pretty stunning turnaround in terms of where we were 6 months ago.
Yeah. Well, here, let me give you a break. I mean, what I hear from that, and it's funny, the song plays in my head, but like is the whole theme around, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, extremely true. It's crazy to think you guys go from, you sign some advertising deals or expect you're about to, and you're at a 0.1514, whatever you said, rating point. And you're about to sign something you said equivalent to, 150K US, give or take. And now, you're up, over 1,000%. And it's only been a year, and think, now you're back at a table. That's incredible. I think, like you said, COVID in many cases was bad. Don't get me wrong. Of course, it wasn't an easy path, but now you guys are able to build the channel to the next level. You've been growing, exceptionally fast. Anyone can see that from recent press releases. So you go from this business that, hey, we have some good parts. We've got a great team, great everything. We're putting the pieces together. We're trying to find advertisers to take a chance. And then it goes through, oh, everyone's kind of, down, especially the advertising world, to, okay, let's focus on building, our channel that much stronger, to great. We have a great product. The market's now starting to accept us, to now, as the world's starting to, move towards normality. I think anyone would say that advertisers are back at the table, and you're saying, hey, we built something here. We have something real. So I think, hey, pretty awesome kind of transition to now it's the channel speaks for itself. You're able to show people the potential, and it's, the numbers don't lie.
Yeah, well, we've definitely moved in the last 3 months. I would call it in the September, October, November timeframe. We've moved from what's Q and what do you guys do and what are you doing, to what's the Q? This looks really interesting. How can we do something together? I mean, if you look at that time period, that was when we shot up. I mean, the first thing when we went from 0.14 to like, I think it was 1 or 1.04 or whatever it was, I forget the exact amount, but I think it was 664%, audience growth rate in 5 weeks. I mean, it was just like a rocket. We signed up with Amazon Fire Stick TV and got in bed with Amazon in India. India is one of Amazon's absolute most important marketplaces. So to get in bed with their Fire Stick, which they're starting to roll out in a big way across India, is a huge feather in our cap, and we're going to reap benefits from that going forward. TikTok got banned in India. The app that became sort of the new TikTok, or is becoming the new TikTok in India, is an app called Chingari. We got in a business and marketing relationship with Chingari. We're just starting to roll out on that app, which is exactly the target audience that we're going for. We had a show that we've been putting on to Snap in India called Bali to Box. We delivered, which is a sort of a Bollywood gossip show. We delivered our 100th episode during this period, and now that show has had over 350 million views across those shows. So we have a huge amount of viewership that happens. You're talking about, 3.5 million people are watching every episode of Bali to Box on Snap India, which is huge. And we announced recently the beginning of production that will roll out in Q1 of our first original show called Kia Insta Bolta, which basically in Hindi is what's happening on Instagram this week. So it's going to be a show that's going to monitor all the cool things that are going on Instagram. So we've got this, amount of momentum that's been built up during the last 3 months, and we plan on having a strong finish in this month in December. And so it's literally gone from the dark days, I'll call it, of May, June, of like, wow, what the heck are we going to do here, to wow, 2021 is going to be an amazing year for us in India.
Yeah. No, it's a great kind of setup for the next video. Obviously, you want to do again. like crazy roller coaster, right? 2020, insane. Even for the markets, I know a lot of people watching this, like markets have been doing well, of course. Wild times, but also, with the channel. And it's funny, we at first you're like, well, how much can these ratings keep going? And I understand, there's of course things start to plateau the higher you get, but still seeing great growth after that 600% growth 5 weeks. So things have been going well. Knock on wood that they continue. But a great teaser for 2020, and I guess we'll do a 2021 kind of. Hey, hopefully there's
Yeah.
advertisers and we can talk about that. But incredible, right? The road you guys have, launch your own, your own show, all these other stuff too that you haven't really talked about too much. If you wanted to recap, I know they're recent, but if you want to recap give me your favorite three things that you accomplished this year before we kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, I think the number one thing is that we we use some of the data we were getting, the feedback from our users, our own instincts, what we were seeing happen in the marketplace, to say we've got to create a cooler programming offering that people are going to respond to. And that's a never ending process. You never, when you've got a channel running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you never stop that process. But we feel like we've kind of struck a nerve and gotten into a groove, and we've got some things happening now that are really saying, okay, you know what? People are coming back. People are showing interest in this. Word of mouth is strong. Audience is growing. So that's probably number one on my list, because that's something that was kind of in our control. COVID be damned, things that are happening. That's about grinding and working hard and making something happen. So that would probably be number one. Number two for me is that advertisers are coming to us now, coming back, that we were talking to, that basically in April, May, we're just hanging up the phone. No, we're not doing any new deals right now. Sorry. That's all. That inbound advertising interest has really picked up just in the last month. And so to see that happening, and to see brands and advertisers, which is obviously the lifeblood of our business and how we monetize, is incredibly exciting, and really leads to what 2021 excitement is all about. And then the final thing is that our influencer marketing business here in the US is 95% reliant on the theatrical motion picture business. Up till February of 2020, we've really resurrected that now. I mean, we just booked $100,000 job today for this month. So we're going to have one of the biggest quarters that we've ever had with influencer marketing in Q4 of 2020. So there's a lot of really good stuff that's going on, and it's sort of is why, we say to investors, jump in now, because 2021, you're going to look back and go, oh, I guess I should have listened to Kurt.
Yeah, no, awesome. Hey, you did a great job. You capped it off. You gave the influencer little teaser for people. And I was actually about to ask, the other part. Obviously, you guys, even though not many people going to movies right now, you guys have done extremely well on the influencer standpoint, at least this quarter. Maybe not as well as we would have hoped at the beginning of the year, but still crushing it for COVID-related influencer marketing. So incredible. Again, hopefully that grows in 2021 as well, and we can talk about that part of the business. But this is a good recap. Again, roller coaster of a year for sure. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the core business, the channel exploded this year.
Yes.
For sure, especially in the last quarter, the last few months. So fantastic. Again, congratulations. In my eyes, this has been a great quarter for the Q, and I would hope so. You think
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's not over yet. There's still some good things that can happen before we get to the end of the year. I mean, we're 24/7 kind of guys. So trust me, we're still trying to make some more things happen as we speak. But yeah, it's 6 months ago, I didn't think I'd be as excited about where we're at right now as I am. So I feel pretty damn good about what's going on at the moment.
Cool. Anything else you want to talk about, 2020 highlights before we close things off? And of course, I always welcome, questions. I do want to do a Q&A video before the end of year. So if anyone has that, wants to put it below, we can definitely squeeze that in.
Yeah, look, I think 2020 is a year that none of us on the planet Earth will forget in our lifetimes. I've been around for a while. I've never seen one quite like this one. I think this is going to be the year that tees up the transformation of Q Media's business. And that 2021 is when we'll start to see that pay off, and obviously for hopefully many years to come after that. But I think this was the year where, ironically, our focus allowed us to build a greater foundation than we even had at the beginning of the year. And that's going to be the springboard for things to really, really happen in 2021.
Yeah, no, awesome. Well, we'll sum it up there. We got some teasers for our next video, which is great. But Kurt, thanks so much for joining. This was a great kind of 2020 highlight video, and hopefully for people watching, you know, the whole story now condensed into a few minutes for you. And again, if there's questions, make sure you leave them below. But Kurt, thanks so much.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Good to see you, buddy.